Welcome. In this video I'm going to show you how you can perform a cliff delta test using Python. I'm using Jupyter Notebook, Jupyter Lab actually, with a Jupyter Notebook, and Python version 3.12. I'll focus on how to obtain the output and the formulas, and not so much if you should be using this test. There's a separate video on actually obtaining cliff delta itself, which is then the same as the rank by serial correlation. So if you're interested only in obtaining cliff delta, then have a look at that video. And this test can be used if you have two categories and some scores on an ordinal level. The example I'll be using, I already loaded that in using pandas, and then the student statistics file. I don't need all of its data. I actually only need a binary field. I'll be using gender for that because the students in the survey only selected male and female, so it becomes binary in this case. And mixed number of activities, which as you can see was actually text, ranging from far too little to far too much. And because these are not in the proper order, I also have a small coding one. In this video I won't be using any libraries. I'm not sure about any libraries besides my own, which I have a small video about where you can just use my function that can actually perform this test. I do know that there are a few who can obtain cliff delta and also perhaps get the confidence interval, but not the p-value itself. So we need to do it the hard way. I need some data preparation. I want to separate the data, and also I need to map those codings because I need them to be numeric. So what I'm going to use is the map one, and now I actually have that mixed number of activities as numbers. And I want to separate, like I mentioned earlier, the male and the female scores, so that can easily be done as well. I'm also going to remove any missing values, so let's do that by using drop NA, and then convert them to lists, so I'm not cheating by using any other libraries, except perhaps for the p-value in the end. Now we can go over the formula, the test statistic and the variance. So in general, let's say if we have two independent samples with x values and y values, then we're going to have a look at every possible combination of a score from this one and a score from that one. So what we can do is we can first create the combined set by adding both of these together, so the union of the two, which will then have a total length of the length of the first one plus the length of the second one. We then create a matrix where we actually have both of them, all the scores in the rows and all the other scores in the columns. And then we'll assign a 1 if the x value is bigger than the y value. We assign a 0 if it's equal, or a -1 if the y value is bigger. So we can simply use a for loop for that. There are probably faster ways of doing this, but hopefully you get the idea. So now I have a big matrix with all of those scores. The next thing then is to actually use cliff delta, which he defined as the proportion of scores in the second population that lies below it minus the proportion that lies above it. And he gives then also equation 8, which looks a bit like this. But actually, as you notice, this is just a division over the sum, and therefore the average of actually all those scores we had earlier. So what I can just now do is I can sum all of those up, and that should give us those averages. Then the d.j is then similar, but now in the other direction. So we can use the similar equation for that. And now we can finally then determine cliff delta, which is then this formula over here. We have everything we need for that. It's just the sum over both of them, and then divided by the product of the two, so n1 times n2. Now that we have that, the mean of d1 and d2 each will also give that d. So if I just calculated this, I should get the same result, and indeed we get the same result. Then we need to get into the variance, or actually in the sum of squared deviations for all three. So the overall one, the first one and the second one. So these formulas are fairly straightforward now because we have everything we need for each of them. And then we can, the equation 9 from Cliff to get the variance of the delta, which is this scary looking formula, but we have everything. We have that sample size squared, we have those sum of squareds, so we have basically everything in this formula, so we can just complete the formula and have a look at the result. There is an alternative that looks like this one, for which we also actually have everything already, but then these are simply the variances rather than using the sum of squares. So if we use that, we get similar results, actually the same results, so it's just another way of calculating the same thing. There's a small catch that in theory this could actually become less than 0, which is impossible for a variance. So there's a suggestion to actually set as a minimum this value. So that would be the minimum. So in case it becomes less than 0, we'll use this one instead. Now, our estimate for the population variance is then going to be the maximum of those two, and we have our variance. There is a different estimate, a consistent one, given by Cliff as well, which looks like this, slightly different. There's no subtraction here anymore, so this one doesn't have that danger. And then we get a slightly different result, as you can see here. Now the test statistic is the Cliff delta itself divided by that variance, so the square root of that variance, which we can just mimic by raising something to the power of a half. Finally, we then need the p-value. So Cliff actually suggests to simply use a normal distribution for that. I will be using Python's own normal distribution for that. So we can say it's 2 times 1 minus and then the cumulative density function of the absolute value of the test statistic. I'll do it for both versions and you can see that they're both extremely small. It's also possible to use a t-distribution according to Delaney and Fargay. They do actually need the so-called placement values, which they define as follows, as over here, where they simply say is going to be 1 if it's a 1, a 0.5 if they're equal, and a 0 if it's negative. So we can do that for the first ones, and similar we can do the same, but then for the second ones, and that gives slightly different results. It's actually the same as the difference between the pooled rank and the corresponding rank. I'll show that in the appendix, so I'll leave a link to this Jupyter notebook if you want to read everything a little bit more carefully. We finally need the averages of those, which is just the sum divided by the amount. And then again we need the sum of square deviations for each, so take the value, subtract the average and square the result, and then sum all of that. We do that again for both. And then the sample variances is then the sum of square deviations divided by the sample size minus 1. So we get those. The degrees of freedom is this formula, which does have an A and a B, and depending on which one you want to follow, you could do it in line with a so-called Flickner-Policello test. Then you define A and B like this. So if we do that, we get these values for A and B. You can also do it more in line with the Brunner-Munsell test. Then you get these formulas for A and B. And as you might notice, these are quite different actually. Depending on which one you use for A and B, we get the degrees of freedom simply by filling out that remaining of that formula. This one, we have everything we need. We have the A and the B, the A squared, n minus 1 and n2 minus 1. So we have everything, so we can just fill those out and we should get our degrees of freedom. Now we'll use SciPyStats t-distribution because doing that without a library is a little bit tedious. I do have some videos on how you could do it if you really didn't want to use it, but most people simply use this one. It's 2 times 1 minus the cumulative density function of the student t-distribution of the absolute value of our test statistic and our found degrees of freedom. So let's run that. We actually have 4 different variations. All of them are below 0.05 because e minus 0.05 means that you have to divide this 6 by 10 to the power of 5, which is going to be extremely small, close to 0.0006 again. So they're all quite similar. And we have 4 versions because we have the unbiased and the consistent versions, and we have the one that uses Flickner Policello and the ones that use Brunner Munsell. In this case, they're all below the below the usual threshold of 0.05, so we would say it's a significant result. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video and it was helpful. I rushed through it a little bit. If you really want me to go through it in more details, let me know. I'll leave a link in the description below to my website where you can always download all the Jupyter notebooks I'm using. Alright, thank you for watching.